Hi guys, Bill again. Well, this isn't the video that I was going to make, but a story I read earlier this week's been preying on my mind. Yeah, some things just get to you, you know. I started this channel with a response to Schrodinger's rapist. You know, the notion that men are all rapists unless they demonstrate otherwise. That's a crazy idea. It's not only impossible to prove. You shitlords, you might just not have gotten round to going on your first raping spree. But humour aside, it is a vile imputation of the most disgusting kind of malice. Now, I've had a lot to say about that accusation over the last few years. It's bandied around by feminists everywhere. It's leading the agenda for so-called social justice. And that leads to ever more misandric practices and legislation right around the Western world. I haven't talked so much about the other side of the coin, about female rape, about adult women raping other adults and children. It doesn't really get a lot of coverage in the press, and you tend to find people become absolutely flabbergasted when they hear about it for the first time. And, you know, it must be incredibly rare, yeah? Well, it's difficult to say, really. In adult interactions, female on male rape isn't actually a crime in most Western countries. And in fact, if you discount charges that involve penetration, it's hardly illegal anywhere at all. Just give you an example. The Federal Bureau of Investigation defines rape as the penetration, no matter how slight, of the vagina or anus with any body part or object, or oral penetration by a sex organ of another person without the consent of a victim. What that means, ladies, is that a stranger can drug your father, or your brother, or your husband, or your son, and they can rape him repeatedly with absolutely no fear of prosecution for the assault. Now, if you live anywhere near a military barracks, a naval station, or a military airfield, pop into town, listen to local girls boasting of having done exactly that to some poor squatty. The worrying thing is that it's usually seen as some kind of amusing anecdote rather than a confession of something they've done that's... yeah. Not that you need drugs to rape anyone. I mean, violence and shock are usually enough. Shia LaBeouf was raped during a piece of performance art. Now, he's tough, he's resilient, he's in superb physical condition. But two of his assistants had to drag off his assaulter, his abuser. The guy was just stunned, distraught. The first time he talked about it, the thing he focused about was trying to come to terms with the rape and try and explain to his girlfriend what had happened. He was raped on Valentine's Day. Nice. It's pretty clear that a serious assault happened, but when he went public with it, the media were more interested in the fact that he was at work at the time, that he was conducting some kind of arty, pretentious performance art. Apparently, if you got a paper bag over your head, you're fair game. Go online. Look up Piers Morgan for a distilled, cuntish version of the typical reaction that most people had to it. Beggars belief, it really does. Things are a little bit clearer when women rape children. Raping a minor is a crime, and paedophile rapists tend to face heavy sentences for victimising others for their own sexual gratification. But what gets me is just this astonishing double standard that we've got. Female paedophiles can usually get their crime reported or portrayed as some kind of forbidden love story, some romance transcending the usual rules for civilised behaviour. Whereas males, they're usually seen as grooming their victims. They're ugly predators taking advantage of their victims' immaturity and vulnerability. You wonder how far that goes. And that's pretty much what got me with this snippet. Check out this fucking animal. That's Heather Coon. She's pleaded guilty to 4 counts each of rape, kidnapping and pandering obscenity involving a minor. She's also pleaded guilty to 3 counts of illegal use of a minor in nudity orientated material and single counts of tampering with evidence and engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity. It's a long-winded way of saying that she raped children in 2 different daycare centres and sent the images to her boyfriend. Do you want to hear what the defence has got to say for her? Dan Whiteman, her attorney, he says that if you'd meet her and talk to her, she's a very engaging and charming young lady. That really, her personality, it doesn't fit any of the things that she's charged with. She raped children, Dan. One of her victims was 2 years old when she violated that child's innocence. Another victim, just 3 years old when the attacks took place, still can't bear to be around strangers 4 years later. Charming. Is that really how we want to describe a serial child rapist? Naturally, of course, it wasn't her fault. Her partner made her do it. Oh yeah. He made her do it by sending text messages while he was under a restraining order prohibiting him from living at her address. That defence lawyer again. He says that she was following Osborne's orders when she abused the children. And that we, the defence team, are hopeful that at the end of the day the judge recognises that Heather, to a great extent, felt compelled to be involved in this activity. But she does have a lot of remorse about it. Remorse. She won't even take responsibility for what she did. Why the fuck should anyone believe that she feels the slightest shred of remorse? She's only sorry she was fucking caught. The victim's parents, they certainly don't believe any of it. One father said that hopefully they, her and her conspirator, get nothing less than life and never realised creatures like this even existed. One of the mothers said that they've shown no remorse to me. I don't suppose they've shown any remorse to anyone, really. Another one said that that's when you realise there's a sickness in the facility, in the daycare facility, and someone preys on your child. I can't imagine what those people feel like. I really can't. Words escape me. Whiteman says that what's up for debate is whether Coon should be considered a violent sex offender. What's up for debate? Not the fact that she carried out violent sexual acts. She very helpfully videotaped herself carrying out violent sexual acts against fucking babies. Now, what we should take into account is that earning that designation at a future hearing would give the former child caretaker a mandatory life sentence without parole. I want you to dwell on that for a moment. What the lawyer wants us to consider isn't what she did. That's not the issue. He wants us to consider what the consequence is of recognising that she did it. Whether she should be considered guilty of the crime should hinge on what the possible outcome to her should be, not the fact that she raped fucking babies. He goes on that it's very unusual to have a female charged as a sexual predator. Almost unheard of. He says that psychologists tend to think she's more along the lines of a battered woman. She was being influenced by her boyfriend. So there it is right there, the victim narrative. Pay close attention to the wording on that though. That was a lawyer talking. It's a very carefully worded statement. It is indeed very unusual for a female to be charged as a sexual predator. That's not the same as it being even slightly unusual for a female to be a sexual predator. Western society does not treat men and women equally in court. Now, it's fairly easy to demonstrate that females get treated more leniently than males under identical circumstances. I'll put a couple of links below, but I'm sure you've seen them before, or you've seen something similar before. The suggestion that the lawyer is making is based on the performance of Western legal systems, not the behaviour of Western women. Now the next part comes that psychologists think part. What psychologists actually think is very precisely parsed in court on a case-by-case basis. They're responsible for what they say in court, as opposed to the brief, who's outside of court and doing a bit of hand-waving. He's thrown in an emotive buzzword because in the West we have a very clear view of what domestic abuse is. You can characterise it best as calling it the Duluth model. Basically it amounts to male abuser, female victim. Now, apart from the fact that it's flat out wrong in most cases of domestic abuse, it also suggests that the rapist that we're talking about was some kind of victim. There's no suggestion, none at all, during the trial that her relationship with her partner was an abusive one. But the problem is, it would have to be an abusive relationship for her boyfriend's influence over her to be a factor. James Osborne's an utter cunt. He's a convicted sex offender. He broke the terms of his restraining order to live at her house. Now her house is within 1,000 yards of a school. That's within 1,000 paces of a school. He's just started an 8-year stretch for breaching the terms of his parole, but he resisted going to prison like a cowardly fanny he is. I mean, he's already guilty of owning child pornography. He nagged and he cajoled his girlfriend into taking obscene photographs of the children in her care. Here's the thing, his crimes, and there are a great many of them, his crimes amounted to looking at paedophile pornography and asking a third party to make more porno images for him. Now, like most parents, like most people, I haven't given the fat bastard a damn sight more than 8 years for plotting this kind of thing. But he didn't even step into the nurseries, much less actually molest anyone. She did that. She's the one who did much, much worse than take pictures of babies. She fucking raped them. There were 6 victims. 6 victims. And the woman who chose to rape babies for her and her partner's sexual gratification is not one of those fucking victims. She faces the potential of 15 years to life imprisonment for most of those charges. So does Osborne for being an accomplice in them. But that increases to life without parole if they're found guilty of being violently sexual predators. Now, I'm not blessed with faith, guys, but I tell you what, I'm tempted to start praying, just on the off chance that some vengeful God makes the right decision for us. If you've got the stomach for it, I've left some links below. Laters.